Okay, so this video is going to be called DMT, Synchronicity, Entropy, and Schizophrenia. I have basically like a few little notes and stuff that I took just so that, you know, it'll keep me on track. So what I wanted to talk about was people, when they take psychedelics, they often report synchronicities happening, or like meaningful coincidences, and it seems that it's you know, it's based on when people dose. You know, like after they dose, they'll have experiences of very unlikely coincidences happening, and it happened to me too. I won't really go into much detail as of yet in this video. I will in another one, but it was around 2 years ago. I was using DMT a lot, and I discovered, or I realized the concept of the unified field theory, and you guys can look that up basically. But there's always this sort of thing about psychedelics, like the level 5 experience bringing you to 0 point, or they call it ground state. In one of my other videos, I think the shroom trip report video, I went over what the definition of ego death is, and I guess enlightenment too, and this is what is supposed to happen at like in a level 5 psychedelic experience if you do it in the right setting. Their explanation is that enlightenment occurs when the usual automatized reflexivity of consciousness ceases, which is experienced as letting go and falling into the void and being wiped out of existence. When consciousness stops trying to catch its own tail, I become nothing and discover I am everything. And so all of those things about, you know, 0 point, ground state, and that statement above are connected in a way, and I'll go over more of that later. So anyways, back to synchronicity. So, and I guess Carl Jung. Carl Jung is the person that actually coined synchronicity. I think I have one of his quotes. Jung believed that just as events may be connected by causality, they may also be connected by meaning. So, but it's a tricky concept, because like you don't really know, are you just seeing more patterns of meaning and making you believe synchronicity is happening, or is reality being bent or altered in a way? And I went over how psychedelics sort of increase pattern recognition and basically make you notice more. You know how so if you have too low, you know, you can't see the downmation here. Yeah, and then where's the other one? And if it's too low, you couldn't see Saturn either in this little noise. But if it's too high, you'll see meaning and patterns and connections in noise where there's nothing there. So, you know, on a psychedelic, you would be seeing this. So, you know, it ties into what Carl Jung was saying about actually, I have another quote here. He said, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." But I myself have experienced like chain reactions of synchronicities that almost seem linked to each other. Like it was way too the probability that you know that would happen, or the statistics of it were completely just, you know, out of there was no way. It was just completely impossible. And I've been talking to a lot of people on like shroomery.com, and I actually talked to one guy that he claimed to be like a physicist. He's probably like some, you know, an amateur physicist, but he does study it, so he does have a lot of knowledge. And I think I talked to him about it, and he says that he's been studying synchronicity and how psychedelics affect it, and he claims it's called an anti-entropic effect on reality, which causes probability to be basically thrown out the window. So with entropy, this is basically what it is. things will start at a highly ordered state. So if you're thinking about an ice cube, let's say that the highly ordered state is an ice cube, and as it increases in entropy, it expands, so it turns into first a liquid, and then it'll expand more, and then it'll turn into a vapor. So the vapor is the more disordered state, because it doesn't have the order that that its other state has, and so you can see how the order and disorder can be mapped as, you know, a solid letter here, and then as it moves towards disorder, it turns into noise. What I was showing you basically with the psychedelics, and how psychedelics basically make you see patterns in noise. So you can see how that's similar to the white noise that I was showing you. And this noise is even what happens in our universe. Our universe started in an ordered state, and it's moving towards, I guess, atomic death. It's moving towards, I guess we can call that zero. It's moving towards zero. So, but the very interesting thing is, if we think back to Carl Jung's quote right here, in all chaos there is a cosmos, is a cosmos. In all disorder there is a secret order. So in that noise, we obviously showed that, yeah, there was order. There was the Lewis Brown drawing that I showed you, how that's what noise would look like on psychedelics. So that's what he's talking about, that there's a secret order. And this, in my sort of, you know, like I've been making connections myself, and all of this stuff, how nothing turns into everything is sort of, it's sort of like how the multiplicative inverse of zero could be infinity, or positive or negative infinity. And if you guys want to look up what multiplicative inverse is, I don't really have time to go over it with you, but it's basically the same concept as dividing by zero. You basically you get plus or minus infinity. So all of that ties into you know, the ego death thing, where it says I become nothing and discover I'm everything. How zero could be considered infinity. I mean, there's even, you know, look up on the internet, God's math. There we go. Should be somewhere. Zero and infinity. Yeah, there. So everything forever. When zero equals infinity. So this concept is a very, very, very important one. Where, you know, how it ties into schizophrenia, psychedelics, and entropy. And the pattern recognition that it causes as well. More examples here. I made this little thing here, so you can see a solid. I call that reality, and then when you take a psychedelic, it turns into, it puts you in an altered state. So you're in a less ordered, more chaotic state. And obviously you can see that schizophrenia and psychedelics are very similar in their effect. I mean, they're called psychomimetic drugs for a reason, and this is why, because it puts you into a gas disordered state. But you know, how you're looking at that disorder is definitely, you know, it could make all the difference. Because how I've pretty much mapped this is, let's take a sine wave. So this is actually something that I figured out while I realized the unified field theory on psychedelics. And now all of this stuff could just be false positives, me you know, seeing a pattern that's not actually there. But this is the kind of thinking that psychedelics cause. Whether it's valid or invalid is another issue. But so as it starts at order, so this is where the sine wave starts, and as you can see, its amplitude and frequency are pretty normal, and then it gets to a higher frequency and a higher amplitude, higher frequency, higher amplitude, higher frequency, higher amplitude. And as that's happening, the sine wave is getting compressed. So what happens when you compress a sine wave infinitely? What does it become? So it becomes this. What this is called digital unity. So that's basically what's happening in psychedelics, is it's pushing you into a more ordered, more disordered state until you reach critical mass. This is critical mass, when everything collapses on itself. This is a black hole. This is zero and infinity in a paradox, or a sort of Schrodinger's cat scenario. So this could be seen as another octave, basically. So it starts at one octave, and then it goes, and then it gets reached a higher octave, and then it starts again in the same pattern until it reaches another higher octave. So another good example of some of the synchronicities that you would see is one that I had in my previous video. You know how I showed the jester and the painting right here, and then I had Aussie Pixel, one of the other commenters. He posted one of his digital paintings, and he said that he was so surprised when he saw the jester in his first DMT trip, and then look at the composition. It's almost identical. So, you know, that's probably, I mean, that kind of coincidence is sort of up in the air, but that's just an example of the kind of very, very strange things that happen with psychedelic use. Obviously that's you know, a weaker one. I had way stronger ones, but the amount of people that notice differences in synchronicity happening, is it just because their pattern recognition is going higher, so they're seeing more meaning in things that have no meaning, or are they affecting reality in a way that causes things to basically lose probability, or throw probability out the window, basically? So when you take psychedelics, I often made the joke that Stephen Wright, the comedian, said black holes are where God divided by zero, and that's basically what I think, you know, psychedelics do. Is when you take a psychedelic, you're basically dividing yourself by zero, and you know, all the entropy effects that come with that are you know, they can confuse you, they can cause you to have benefits in your life. It's all about basically how you understand what's happening, and you know, these are just patterns that I'm seeing in it. I'm just doing this to that as that is to this. That's what I've been doing since I realized the unified field theory. I've just been merging every single concept that I can, or tried to find a fundamental concept, or some of the most basic things that I can sort of compare to everything, and build a more solid, unified understanding of it. And so far, you know, this concept has been helping. It definitely seems to have some sort of solid connectivity, but you know, I would like to see you guys, you know, give me some, you know, give me your thoughts on it. See what you think. I thought it was pretty neat. It's creative, even if it's not completely right. But you know, that's just the kind of thought process that psychedelics cause in your brain. And so, you know, if anything, that would show you just what kind of thinking that you end up having when you really indulge in psychedelics.